Good evening and welcome to Resolutions for Recovery. This show is dedicated to the education and empowerment for all people struggling with substance use disorder, and especially their family members and loved ones that alongside of them struggle with the daily aspects of this insidious disease. But tonight we're going to take a little bit different focus on what's going on in our local communities, specifically Northport, East Northport, the task force, the Drug and Alcohol Task Force, and their proactiveness in reaching high schoolers and middle school, all school-age children, and what we can do to either stop or slow down the progression of a disease in adolescence. So tonight we have Abby, Alyssa, and Catherine. Catherine is you're the youth coordinator.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So she is not one of the kids,
No.
but that's awesome. Abby, you've joined us before, but so excited. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your talent, because you guys are really putting forth an amazing effort in and I love working with high school kids. So, you are the pulse and you know what each other need, right? Mm-hmm. I don't need to tell you what I think you should be doing. You need to tell us what you need to get the job done. So tell me a little bit about your youth coalition.
So our youth coalition is named One Life, with the number one, and life is an acronym for learn, inspire, fulfill, and empower. And each of those things, we had a long discussion on what can we use, what can we do. Like, we're looking up words everywhere, and those 4 words are kind of what we want our mission to be, and how those words progress or how we want to progress.
Okay, so learn about substance use disorder, or what excessive drinking and drugging could do to you.
We want to educate students, kids, high school students, or anyone really. Give them the education and the tools and the resources to use once they're already in those situations, or how to handle them when things become where you need emergency medical help, or how to not get in that situation in the first place, how to stop it before. So that's how we use LEARN in our acronym.
Okay.
Another part of the learn aspect is to know the laws around you, like the Good Samaritan law and the social host law. We actually did a poll in our school the other week about, when you ask you the question, what is the Good Samaritan law? Most kids didn't know what it was.
Mm-hmm. Still. And that's, that's we have so many unnecessary deaths caused by. So the Good Samaritan law is, if you see something, call the police. You are not, whether you are intoxicated, impaired in any way, shape, or form, you're not going to be arrested. You're not going to be charged with anything. You're going to save a life is what you're going to do.
So we, see that a lot of bystanders are afraid of calling for help because they don't want to get in trouble. So that's really what the LEARN part of our mission is. Like these gals said, we really want to empower youth to feel comfortable, and that means knowing the law, knowing that you won't get in trouble, and knowing that it's the right thing to do in a really risky situation.
Yeah, don't leave your friend in the field behind the
we've
bleachers.
seen so many things recently.
Too many things, way too many things, and it's so unnecessary. And then the social host law. I would love to see kids tell their parents, this is against the law. I would love that. I mean, wouldn't that be, because we see way too many parents have been arrested just recently, but it's caused the unnecessary death in Dix Hills, the young girl that wandered away from the party and was, I believe, hit by a car or something.
I think I'm not quite sure, but
she's dead, nonetheless.
Right.
So how it happened really is unimportant. Is that
what you could have done to stop it from happening?
Right.
There's so much that could be done, which is what we're trying to do with LEARN, is really educate kids and give them the resources and the tools that they need. Like we were talking about Red Watch Band training, if you want.
Yeah, so Stony Brook University does a fantastic bystander training. It's Red Watch. And it's all about, giving youth the tools to do the right thing, like I just said, in risky situations. The problem with the social host law that we see a lot, especially in the adult conversations, is, well, if kids are drinking in my house, then I know that they're safe.
Correct.
But the unfortunate thing is, and we often forget, that alcohol is a gateway drug. And so, typically, I saw this meme the other day online, heroin's not the first drug that someone uses.
Absolutely not.
It starts with cigarettes, it starts with vape, it starts with alcohol. So, we really have to be careful about what message we're sending by allowing, underage drinking
I think it's important from a parent's perspective is to have a health policy that works with inside your family, number one. And then number two, as soon as you say the message, it's okay for you to do that at home. If it's okay for me to do that at home, I have carte blanche to do that everywhere. So you're sending the wrong message right off the bat. By the way, it's still against the law under the age of 21.
Right.
So let's just keep that in mind. Sometimes family have traditions that you're allowed to have a little sip of wine or something. We're not talking about that. We're talking about kids having their friends over and you buying a keg for them and you providing all of those other
And that's where we
things.
kind of go with like the next letter I, and inspire people to know more, to get out of the stigma of not wanting to talk about it and all of that type of stuff. Like the inspire aspect of it is to stop stigma.
Yes.
Yeah, we talk about stigma a lot, especially me. It's something that I feel extremely strongly about. I mean, I lost my dad to an overdose 2 years ago, and my dad was probably like the biggest heart, kindest person you'll ever meet. His kids were the absolute world to him, but he was suffering from a disease that is addiction, that took his jobs, took his kids, and ultimately took his life. So there is this stigma surrounding addiction. You hear the word junkies a lot. You hear, almost
Degrading.
it's like their lives don't matter. But people who don't fully understand it aren't gonna get that it's like a disease like any other, and that it's really like a struggle. So we work to inspire kids to work against that and want to learn more.
From my point of view, my son was the All-American boy. And then when the community realized that he was struggling with the disease, he became the scourge of the community.
And everything
he was still
wants
the
to
same
be
boy.
Yep.
He was struggling with the disease. And you'll appreciate that if your dad had been diagnosed with cancer, your community would have given you spaghetti dinners and
I
raised
use
money
that
for you.
comparison all the
right?
time. Yes.
So it's still a disease, and we have to meet our patients where they are and give the family support, not shun them.
Definitely.
It's not like
It's
The most
everything is-
important time in your life, that's when you needed your community to surround you and lift you up.
People really tend to kind of push things like under the rug. It's very hush hush. No one wants to talk about it. It's this sort of shameful thing to talk about. And I think we really need to break away from that. It's really time that we break away from that, because like you're saying, there are so many unnecessary deaths that could have been avoided.
Yes.
So many.
And what adult in any, you can criticize kids all you want, and they do. But what grown man with a family would purposefully
Exactly.
throw his
Yes.
life away?
And it doesn't start with that.
Correct.
It starts at 16 when he was smoking pot. I mean,
Right.
Exactly. Really good point.
Yeah. Well, Kim Lauby, who runs Hugs, has taught me quite a few things, but addiction or substance use disorder is an adolescent disease. So 95% of that disease wouldn't happen in adults if they didn't start as adolescents.
The seed wasn't planted young.
Right.
And I think your point about having a community to come
Rally.
together and,
Yeah.
and really wrap you in support is what we're trying to do with younger people. By sort of deconstructing the stigma and throwing that away, we are sending a message that if you're struggling, that we support you and that we're, that you can come and you can ask for help and we're not going to ostracize you. And so I think it really, like you said, addiction starts young, and so we really need to start
And,
young.
and unfortunately, adolescents may not go to their parents right away because of that fear factor. I'm going to be in trouble. So the lunch lady may be their go-to person. Whoever that go-to person is needs to have, the capacity to understand the disease and not walk away from.
And that goes
that
in
person.
to the fulfill part
Yes.
of everything. Fulfill
Yeah,
is
what we're-
really this big part of getting other people involved. Like, again, like you said, it's not the parent they normally first go to, it's a coach more often. It's a friend, it's their best friend, it's a mom's it's a
Yes.
friend's mom. It's never really the parent or the grandparent. And the fulfill aspect of the One Life is the other two combined. It's learning and inspiring and knowing that you have the power to help someone to save one life.
Now
and
go
saving
out and
one
do
life
it.
is just as good as saving 1,000.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If you've saved one life in your lifetime, you've done a really good job.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really want to encourage kids to swim against the tide, be the kid at the party that maybe needs to tell your friend to put the drink down, or
Yeah.
to be able to speak out like that or say no thank you, without that kind of fear of being
Ostracized.
yeah.
Being looked at as, oh, that kid, he's
He's a
that
nerd.
kid.
Yeah.
He's a kid that doesn't drink. Or, oh,
We want to make that the majority, and I know that's a big goal, but
It's a big goal.
we're the tiny little things that we do to work towards it, I think, are going to make a huge
Let
difference.
me
in
ask
the
you
long run.
something. So then how are you seen by your peers in your school?
Our school, Alyssa goes into this a lot. Our school is not a lot of peer pressure. Our
Okay.
school is
It's a lot of self-pressure, we notice. So we, I
Do
think
you
there
think that, do you think that in the world that it's, I happen to agree with that. I don't know how much pressure is put on by other people
Yeah.
as much as on
because
yourself.
we talk about the high school health classes, you're sitting there, you're watching videos, and it's kids in high school bathrooms going, smoke a cigarette, and that's not, or whatever it is, or just come on, drink it. That's
Yeah.
not really what's going on. I think a lot of it is going to be I'm nervous at this party, maybe I'll take a sip, I'll feel a little less nervous. Or,
I'll feel a little more included, a little
Yeah,
more involved.
Right.
Exactly. You
That's-
don't wanna
I think
be
that's more
You don't want to
words.
be any more odd than you're already feeling.
Yes.
Right.
Because I think that once you
I
hit
think that's why kids start.
that magic age, so many things start to happen that you're already feeling odd. And I think we've all, adolescent unfortunately is a rite of passage for everyone. So you feel odd. You've changed. Your body's changing. Your mind's changing. Everything's changing. So you just want to fit in.
I think of it as a cultural norm too. Think about movies, media, celebrities, advertisements. All of this stuff is really cheerleading alcohol use or cigarettes, and
Yes.
and going with the self pressure. It's just a part of adolescent culture, and so from my perspective, if our last word is empower. If we empower young people to do what we were just talking about, to swim against the tide, then the new cool becomes something very different.
Yes.
And a broader change begins to happen. And I think that it's really small steps in our home. So.
I think I'm glad you brought up media and advertisement, all that, because another thing that we talk about because it's so prominent in what we do is the stigma and the connection between substance abuse disorder and mental illness. How in the media mental illness has a tendency, especially depression, anxiety,
It's
in teens,
dramatized,
it's completely glamorized, especially when you add alcohol to it. I see tweets every day, I'm so depressed, LOL, it's this norm to, they really glamorize it. I almost don't even know how to explain it because it's so ridiculous, but it's, I think,
It's almost like the in thing.
Yeah.
to have
it really
anxiety
is.
or depression.
Yes.
And every person at one point in their life is going to feel some anxiety. It's going to happen. But it's
Yes.
different
It's
having
like-
anxiety disorders
Correct.
and depression than feeling down once in a while. And that's what a lot of
Yes.
people don't understand.
So we like to address that in what we do, because so many people who suffer from mental illness turn to substances to try and cope, and a lot of that is because of that false advertisement and that glamorizing of the mental illness and the drinking along with it. I'm gonna, I don't know, what do you see? Drinking, I'm gonna drink until I can't feel anything anymore.
Right.
You see it all the time, you hear it all the time.
Because people don't process their feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So, I use the example, if I came home from school when I was little and said, oh, I had butterflies in my stomach today, my mother never would have called the doctor and said, Linda has anxiety, give her something.
Yeah.
It was a conversation about what made you feel anxious and how can we help you not to feel that way the next day. All those feelings, like you just said, they're normal, basic feelings that people today, in today's world, have a very hard time sitting in those feelings. It's okay not to be okay. That
Right.
doesn't mean your world is ending. It just means, gee, I have a lot on my mind, or let me put this problem away till tomorrow because I can't think of it anymore today.
And part of our LEARN, part of our acronym, is providing the resources and educating, sort of peer-to-peer education for the tools, other healthier coping mechanisms with stuff like. I've suffered from generalized anxiety disorder and depression my whole life. It's an uphill battle, and then you're doing great, and then you're doing terrible, and then you're doing, and sometimes certain things work and sometimes they don't. And so there's nothing super steady, and I think that's another reason kids just want to do anything to make it
Steady.
go away,
Steady.
to make it, to feel the same, and a lot of times they lose their lives because of it, and that's why we want to educate kids in other ways to
What are
cope.
some of your alternatives? Obviously, exercise is a great alternative.
Yeah,
Or
Zumba.
any of the music, art,
Yep.
all of those outlets
All of it.
that other people can use. And
Yep.
what are the first things that are cut in school districts?
Yeah, exactly.
The free
all
thinking.
Yep.
all of the free thinking that give you the opportunity to express yourself,
Yep.
whatever that may be.
And then that goes in, like Kat said, the last part, the life is empower. And that's the empowering to take that step and to know you have those other options instead of going towards something that can eventually take your life. So what we tag ourselves as is one life, but our full thing is one life for life. You get one life for your entire life. Why waste it on
One
things?
body, take care of it. Yep.
Right. So I mean,
It's a great
again,
message.
saving one life
We're
is
going to put
saving.
up. Gio, can you put up oh, there it is. It's on the screen. And
Yeah.
I love that. I know that Nick couldn't be here tonight, but you all had a part in designing it, or did he? design it?
He did
amazing.
most of it, and then he
Yeah.
asked me see oh, you like this? It used to be red, and we were like, oh, purple's color of print. Let's do this, and spreading
love
it.
it.
The first
Yeah.
person you can see is standing up, and the
Yes.
two around him are sitting, and it's spreading it's him empowering the people next
His
to him.
strength.
And soon they'll be all purple, and they'll be standing, and they'll be doing two more people, and two more
Yes.
people.
It's a beautiful. That just gave me the chills. That's a nice. It's really a beautiful logo, and I love the acronym for it. But I really want to ask then too. So your peers in school, do they give you? They don't give you a hard time. They don't say if you're all at a party, do they try to?
No.
That's great.
Now, I have a lot of people ask me how they can get involved. And these are kids who are going to be the kids drinking on the weekends and stuff, but there's a bigger picture there sometimes, and I think sometimes through what we're doing when kids get involved, it changes their view a little
It
bit.
changes
We
their
want
view.
those
Yeah.
kids
So
coming.
when we talk about prevention, because it's not necessarily, obviously,
Yeah.
here's the thing for anything. Abstinence is always going to be the first
Yeah.
foremost,
Right.
whether it's sex, drugs, whatever it is.
It's just not
right?
realistic.
But it's not as realistic as we would like it to be.
Yeah.
So empowering people with the knowledge of what the consequences can be, emotionally, spiritually, physically, right? is important because maybe that's going to change how much you do.
Right.
And if you do make a mistake and you're really feeling uncomfortable, where can I get help?
Right, that's the whole. We think
Exactly.
prevention is overused, especially in
Yeah.
high school. Prevention. Yes, the first step is prevention, but it's unrealistic to think
Most
that
kids-
just prevention is going to stop
The
people
kids
from
that
doing it.
we're working
Well,
with, the kids
first
we're
off,
trying
do
to
you
get.
all, you're high schoolers. Do you know that drugs and alcohol are bad for you?
Yeah.
Does
Every kid who's drinking and
Does every
drugging knows
adolescent know that drugs and
Yes.
alcohol are bad? They already know that fact.
Right. We
Right.
don't
So
need to
that's
tell them
not,
that
we
Yeah.
don't need to tell them that again.
It's not resonating with them anymore
No.
because it's so overused.
Yeah.
What does that even mean? I mean, that's
Yeah,
what
we
talk
hear
about.
awareness, prevention
Right.
all the time, and
We
we
want-
want to get past that. We want to. The kids that we're reaching out to are the kids that are already going to be drinking, or they're already going to be smoking, or hopefully not worse, but some of them are, and
Giving them the tools
Yeah.
to know what to do.
And
if
knowing
they
that
get
it's
into
okay, like,
situation.
even if they already are, that they can stop. I think that's a big thing. Is like people kind of go to, oh well, I've been hearing all this stuff, maybe I'll cut back a little, but then when they're in the situation, they're not comfortable doing that. But to give them the power to say, I'm done. I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
Or I'm not going to start. Or, I don't know. What?
I also think that when kids know there are other groups available that don't drink and drug, and they say, there's somebody else that doesn't want to do this, like I don't want to do this, that's the self, right? The self-pressure.
Yeah.
But just knowing that there are other people that feel the same way that I do, that I don't have to stay in this crowd. Maybe I can just walk over here.
We also are hoping to plan some activities, like, for example, a Friday night outing that has nothing to do with drugs and alcohol. And
Yes.
that goes directly to your point, just having really fun, fulfilling experiences that don't have that, involved. And so kids can say, like, okay, I can have fun without this. Or I feel so
Absolutely.
good after I just spent all that time with my peers. and my community.
We've
Yeah.
only done, we've done a couple of things like that so far. Like we just had rap week literally last week, and it was so successful. One of the biggest things, what we did at our table for One Life, we actually asked kids questions. We asked them Good Samaritan law, social host law, drinking. One of the biggest ones that kids don't know is we asked them basically true or false. An athlete goes to the gym for a couple hours, works out, then they go out drinking that same night. All of the work that they put in that night is negated. People were very surprised that that's true. And a lot of kids were like, what?
Yeah.
One night of drinking negates 2 weeks peak
Yes.
performance training.
Yep. And a lot of kids had no idea.
And that really resonated with some
It
kids,
did.
That's very important, especially if
Yep.
all the.
The
but and
vaping
who
was a big
drinks
one.
the most probably is all the athletes. Correct.
The vaping was a big one that really surprised people. What was the question?
It was people who vape or they smoke
Oh,
a
yeah.
Bow Juul or whatever. They have a greater chance. They have like about an
It was-
8.1% greater chance of smoking cigarettes than people who
Yep.
didn't. So like gateway.
Gateway.
Yeah, it was
They
like a
don't even have
direct
nicotine in them,
connection.
some-
Yeah,
most of them.
Right.
Right.
Just
You don't
the
have
connection.
nicotine. It's just the connection of the smoke itself.
And a lot of those kids are, that 8% are the kids that are saying, oh, well, I vape, it's so much better for you.
No nicotine.
Cigarettes are gross. Like, I would never do that,
Yeah.
and
I would challenge the parents too to also go out and have a night of.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Parents always say you just go and have fun. Well,
Yeah.
show them how to have fun without having
Yep.
have at least one family party a year with no alcohol involved.
right.
Yeah, especially with like, not as much with kids, but especially with adults. A lot of things revolve around every hangout: food, drinking.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very rare that you go someplace and it's like, oh yeah, we're not drinking this time. Like you go out to dinner and someone doesn't order a glass of wine or a
Correct.
champagne. Everything is revolving around that, and that's
Correct.
where. But what the confusing part to me is, if everything's revolving around it, why is there a stigma?
That's a really good point.
It's a great point. But why is there, you can turn on any early morning news show and what do they glamorize? that they're going to leave there and go have a
Absolutely.
cocktail, you know?
Absolutely.
I think it's on one of the morning shows that they actually drink wine at the table at 10 o'clock in the morning. That's despicable.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
What message do you send?
To the 8-year-old sitting on the couch at 7 in the morning watching.
Right.
Yeah.
To that message, and could you have triggered how many millions of people who are struggling to stay sober
Yep.
into drinking?
It's gross. It's unnecessary and it's gross.
It's unnecessary.
I always think of it as like cultural competence.
Yeah.
Because, for example, if we have an employee staff meeting and we have a vegan who's a member of our staff, we would have an option for a vegan, right?
Correct.
But there's no real sensitivity to people who are in recovery.
Correct.
You know, it's pushed like, all these cocktails. You never have a mocktail menu. You never have cool things that have to do with not, you know what?
Great point. And that trigger, again.
I actually went to, I've gone to a couple of music festivals in like the past year. I've gone to Governor's Ball, I've gone to the Meadows. They have tables set up that are called like Sober Gov Ball, Sober the Meadows, and it's a tent. And it's a tent. They have tables, they have stickers, they've got all this stuff. And it is, I went up to them one day, right? And I said, hey, what are you doing here? You know, like what are you trying to do? They had all these awesome stickers.
Bunch of activities.
Yeah, they have a whole
great.
tent.
They
set up.
reward you
So
for not.
what what they said to me when I went in, they said this is a safe place for people who want to enjoy the music but without being around all the drinking and drugging, or for people who are in recovery and who really are not in a place and can't be around it.
I love that.
It was amazing. They had the things that they were handing out where they had resources being handed out. They had
So I would say the change
it was awesome.
is imminent, and we still have to it's going to move
But that was a tiny
forward.
little corner of the
Yeah, that
festival.
was-
We gotta expand
We
that,
have to
you know.
expand that.
Yep.
Is exactly right.
Yep.
Because if you didn't stumble upon it, how would you have found that?
Exactly.
you wouldn't.
I mean, honestly, like for
And that's sad.
the Meadows. I went to the Meadows Music Festival. That they had that. That was when I went up and asked them because I had noticed it at another festival too. And then just a couple tents down, they had a party bus specifically for smoking pot. So like that was all it was for. They were handing out trays to roll joints. They were handing out lighters that said Vice because it was the Vice channel, and they were completely glorifying it, glamorizing it. It was gross. It was gross.
We'll be right back after this message, and we're going to continue with these awesome young people.
My age is 18 years old, and my name is Evan.
My name is Sean, and I'm 19 years old.
My name is Justin, I'm 16.
My name is Angelica. I'm 18 years old.
Marijuana, and I was 13 years old.
Marijuana, and my age was 13.
The first drug I ever tried was marijuana, and I was 12 years old.
It was marijuana, and I was 11 years old.
Yes, and that escalated to promethazine, lean.
I began to take pills like Xanax, Percocets.
I began using other substances such as pills and alcohol.
I then went on to cocaine and pills and quickly progressed to heroin. I was 13 years old when I first started using heroin. I had like aspirations of going to like an Ivy League school, and that quickly, within like a year or two, changed. I stopped going to my classes. I stopped going to school altogether eventually. All my friends were kind of just dropping me.
I started getting in trouble in school, eventually kicked out. I got in trouble with the law a lot.
I wasn't really hanging out with a lot of sober people, just people that use. I overdosed at 15. I've been at Outreach for 5 months. Outreach honestly really helps you. It shows that you're honestly worth something. And it's possible to become sober if you put in progress. But it's not just gonna be handed to you, you really have to want to change. impatient, you can't just leave. You stay here and you have to deal with it. That's what I feel like a lot of kids need.
In a long-term facility, the counselors get to know the resident better, and they get to actually work with them more than in a short-term 28-day facility. And it really gives kids a chance to work on themselves rather than being rushed through a program, just to be thrown back into life, going back into the same old bad habits that they were doing before.
Coming in here, I couldn't believe how long I would have to be here, but after a couple months, like, you know, talking to counselors, I kind of came to the realization that, like, I need a lot of time and work to repair everything I've done.
The things that we get taught here, you know, it really does help you in life, and it gives you a different perspective. It's very important for a kid to have a family involvement in treatment so they don't think they're alone in this. We communicate on a better basis than how we used to. We understand each other more, and that was from the help of outreach.
They come every Wednesday night for support group. They come to a group every other week.
They come to peer support group to discuss their problems also. My relationship honestly has got a lot better, because I remember my mom used to never want to say anything to me because she would be scared of my reaction. I'm starting to realize in here, like, I really have to take advantage of the fact that I have her still.
When I was about 14 is when my parents realized that I had several different problems, such as behavioral issues, and the behavioral issues kind of stemmed from my drug use. I began caring less about myself and others. Outreach has really made me realize how important family is. If I was out of state in a program where my parents were not involved, I would have never been able to strengthen my relationship with them. My father told me that I've inspired him to make changes in his life, and that meant a lot to me. I've never heard my dad be inspired by something before, and I was just proud that it was me.
Welcome back to Resolutions for Recovery, and we're here with the people from the East Northport Drug and Alcohol Coalition. Task Force.
Task Force Youth
Okay.
Coalition.
Yes.
I almost got it.
We're the branch.
Abby, Alyssa, Catherine.
Yes.
I've memorized that now. So you guys just really are coming off kind of a little natural high with your color run that you did. And you had over 800 people there.
Just about.
Yeah, just about.
Wow. So tell me, what did it look like?
Everyone looked at me.
So the color run it was our first annual color run, so we're going to be doing it every year, and it's really to get the community together and kick off a wonderful week that we do. A wonderful week we have district-wide, which is all about recovery, prevention, and awareness.
So that's what RAP Week stands for.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So what did the color run look like?
Oh my gosh, the color one was amazing. We had so many people there, from people in recovery, people whose families have been affected, and just people
In general.
who absolutely
People who wanted to run.
Yeah.
They were having so much fun. We had to get them to stop throwing the color at one point because it was all over the place. It was such an amazing experience. Like, people were so excited, and like, it was so positive. You didn't see any of the adults walking around with a drink in their hand around there. Like,
It was 9 o'clock in the
was-
morning, though, so I'm
It
going to
was.
hope that
Right.
that they wouldn't have been doing that.
Right.
You'd be surprised.
But-
I went trick or treating.
Surprised.
I went trick or treating yesterday. I took my little brother, and all the adults were walking around with drinks in their hands with all the little kids.
I've seen them
All the
walk with their
time.
wagons
Yeah.
filled
Yeah.
with,
The color run though, like I
was-
sadly wasn't able to go. I helped prep the night before though, putting all the color and everything. My shoes are still blue. Me and Nick actually, we put all the color and everything, and even us, like I was like, oh, I want to see like what it would look like. So we
It
took
was-
one squirt bottle and we squirted it. We're like, oh my god, that looks so awesome! I can't wait for like
that's great.
all of it to everywhere. And I know they had a drone following the entire
Yes,
race
it was
on an
so-
aerial view. Beautiful.
That's
so
amazing.
awesome.
That's amazing. So did you have resources before or after regarding any, to how to get help or how not to,
We didn't at the color run.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm just asking what
Yeah.
it looked like.
Well, in the beginning, our director, Anthony Ferrandino, had a little speech. We did run for those who have lost their lives to addiction. In particular, a community member and a task force member just lost her son over this past summer. So we ran in his honor. And then after the race, we had a photo booth. We actually organized a photo contest to, of course, all the younger people are going to be posting on their social media, so we figured we really wanted them to be involved.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we use the hashtag.
We have the picture of the winner. Could we put it up?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yes, he has.
Gio, can you get the picture of the winner for the photo booth when you have a chance?
Yeah, it was like. That's
Not
us.
that one.
That's us at
That's
Rap Week.
just
that was Rap Week.
That's Rap Week. That was our
There it
there
is.
go.
Yeah.
This was a girl. She was in, I believe, 5th grade or 4th grade,
Yeah.
and so cool. Like you can see
look at
all
the
that
color.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
And we
amazing.
all looked individually, like even Mr. Ferrandino, we all looked individually at the pictures of the color run. And like unanimously, we saw this photo and we were like, that's gotta be the
Yeah,
winner.
all of
Like,
us were-
without us even talking to
was
each other, we were like, oh, I have this
amazing.
one, it's so good, you're gonna love
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
great.
we got a ton of amazing pictures
Yeah.
though too. People covered head to toe. It
It's
was
just
crazy.
good, clean fun for a Saturday
Exactly.
morning.
Yep. It was
Exactly.
And the
amazing.
community came together,
It was
Yeah.
amazing.
right? No texting,
Nope.
no just.
I also have to give some appreciation for the adult task force because our members really worked hard, particularly our project coordinator, really worked hard to put this
Would
together.
that be Miss Nicole Carey?
Yes.
She's been on before.
But
and yes, she does a phenomenal job.
It was an amazing event that took a lot of hard work, a lot of no's, a lot of we can't do this, and it really pulled together very nicely, and the community had a wonderful time.
Where did you
so.
run through?
It was
Started at Fifth Avenue.
Started at Fifth
Okay.
Avenue, and then we ended up like kind of behind East Northport Library, where
Okay.
that kind of field is, where they have the fairs.
Yes.
Yeah, and we had a DJ set up, we had a photo booth set up, we had our table, we had like all the hashtags that were being used.
A little appreciation for the DJ that came. He's actually a Northport grad. He graduated last year. He does a lot of
helps
stuff. He
so
does the
much.
And he
photo
did it
boots.
free for you guys?
I don't know what he did, but
I'm not sure.
I think he did.
Okay, and it's okay if you didn't.
Yeah.
he does an awesome job, and he did the photo booth stuff. He had the big like signs. We had the Drug and Alcohol Task Force like cutout where you could like
Yes.
stand and it looks like you're an Instagram
Oh,
photo.
the
Yes.
frame.
So, and that really got, I think, a lot of the younger kids involved too, like the kids who were just running, and even some of the adults were like, "Oh, hey, look, props!" Like,
Yeah, and there was like drug free or life is colorful, so it was really nice to see the messages and all the photos and
And we were able to, we have our Instagram handle set up, our Twitter handle set up, and
Facebook.
we use our hashtag. Yes, we have Facebook now too. We got so
This is
many
all
people.
led by the youth, Catherine? Mm-hmm. They come up with all the ideas?
they are
By
like
Three of us
unbelievable.
and Nick.
I know
That's great.
I feel like my job is so easy because they have such amazing ideas. I'm like, that's
we
amazing.
also
Yes.
like our friend Sabrina is kind of like almost like our media director.
She's in
and
charge of the
she
accounts.
is and she is amazing. She like knows exactly what she's doing, and that's really how you're gonna reach out to most of the
Yeah.
youth these days. So
Do you see any youth or your peers reaching out for help from your efforts?
I actually do know a few people who went up to one of the teachers in school the other day after a presentation and after the color run and everything, knowing that like she's someone they could trust. I do
Okay.
know a few people that went up to her.
I do too.
And-
Well, you're also, your school district
And I've had people-
is progressive with Anthony Ferrandino being the
And
case
awesome.
action
Ferrandino
certified alcohol substance
is
abuse
the most
counselor
amazing.
right on
Yep.
campus. So that can alleviate an awful lot of,
Yeah.
you
And I know people who have struggled with substance abuse at my age and who have talked to Anthony, and I know people have come to me hearing what we did after Rap Week. Since last week, I've had multiple people come to me and go, I want to be involved, either
Yeah.
because they were struggling themselves or they asked me for resources if I knew more, or a girl was telling me we were standing at the table and she was like, vaping's not addictive. I was like, are you vaping with nicotine? She was like, yeah. I was like, you know, so
Yeah.
really people aren't fully informed. Like, she was, you know, using the Juuls. That's the big thing now, and she
But we don't
told
even
me,
know what that does.
There's no testing.
Exactly.
New.
There's
It's
no
not
testing.
FDA approved.
Yep.
It's
It's
not.
it's not anything. And not that I really put a lot of onus on the FDA approving anything because money talks. So,
But like,
but there's no testing on it. So
Right. Right.
10 years from now, 5 years from now,
Yep.
it could
No one
cause
knows
something.
yet.
So we don't know what that causes.
we're actually having a discussion in school. It's gonna make a pizza party in like a few weeks, and we're inviting the GSA, the Gay Straight Alliance, and Femme Club, which is a female empowerment movement, which is a brand new club at the school this year, to come talk about social issues. We want to know what you're
Dealing with.
Right. We want to know what your questions are, your concerns, what you think we need to work on, what you think we should do, like any ideas at all. We're just inviting anyone that wants to go after school and just sit, talk, eat some pizza, and come up with more ideas. Just
yeah.
to make life a little more fun living.
That's the reason that we came up with One Life and that we started the Youth Coalition to begin with, is because we had Northport East Northport's Drug and Alcohol Task Force. It was made up of all adults, and while they are amazing and they have gotten so much done, organized amazing events, they wanted to focus on, well, how do we get our kids to stop doing this? How do we get our kids to not think this is the norm, to understand that it's
Yeah.
okay to say no? But these were adults talking, and, you know, that's when Anthony Ferrandino kind of came to us, and we were in right away. You know, we are all in this for different reasons. Obviously, like, it's personally affected me, but it's like not just because of my father, but because like my peers, the kids around me, like some of my closest friends who are struggling. It's and it's really terrible to see. Like, it's really sad, and there's so much that we can do to stop it. So that's really why we're doing this.
Like, I'm a senior this year, and I'm going to go off to college next year. It's the first taste a lot of people have without their parents on top of
Yeah.
them, without everything. And giving kids the tools before they leave to know, again, not prevention, but to know what they can do if they get into these situations before they go off to college is huge.
Yes.
Because when they go off to college, that's when, I'm not going to say like everyone, because everyone's different, but that's when a lot of people get their first taste, their first push towards these things.
You know, 18 to 25-year-olds, we're forgetting. You know, they're still part of our communities.
Yep.
Right after they
And
leave high school.
And we're seeing now that the largest amount of overdoses right now is within that average 25 age. So
18 to 25. Yeah.
Yeah, so we want to look at what the high schools were doing during
Prior.
that time that they were in school, and what they were taught and what they weren't taught more than anything.
Yeah.
Like, I know, like, our health classes, we're not taught Good Samaritan law, and that is one of the most important things that
we need to get some posters up and available in all
we're
your
actually
schools. Yeah.
we're very excited. We are hoping to talk to GSA because GSA did a poster last year. Was it last year or 2 years ago?
It was last year.
Last year. It's amazing. They went around to students. They had them write a sign, hold it up, took a picture, and then they put it in collage. So there's like maybe 4 or 5 different posters of 9 pictures each one. And it was, I hate hearing that's so gay. It was, you know.
One person had a sign like, it's okay to be questioning.
Yes, like.
These people weren't gay, they weren't lesbian, they could have been straight, they were anything. It didn't say on the sign.
It doesn't matter. It's
And
not,
they were
It was-
talked about. That's
Yeah,
something
so
big.
that's what we want to do, is kind of steal that idea a little bit and put that into what we're doing, partially with, kind of half and half between substance abuse and mental illness as well, because like you said before,
We
it's
tie
okay
in.
to not be okay.
It's okay
and
to
they're
not be
so
okay.
connected, you know.
But we need to empower our 5-year-olds that it's okay. Not everything is going to be, life is going to knock you down. It's not if it's going to, it's when it's
Right,
going to.
right.
Yep.
So just be prepared for that, and that's okay, because you have to. You can't know joy unless you've known sadness, and you know
Yep.
you can't know success unless you've known failure. Abby, what fuels you to do this?
Mine is really just like, again, I'm a senior, I'm going off. I don't want to come home
But
one
you've been
day.
involved longer than that.
Yeah, but just like thinking about it, like I don't want to come home one day and hear one of my friends is dead because they lost their life to something like this that I could have helped prevent. I could have
Yeah.
helped them. That's something like terrible to think about. I'm 17, I'm going to be 18 in a few months. Like, why do they lose their lives so early?
Right.
Yeah, and it is terrible, but that's why we want to really talk about it, is because while it's terrible, it's happening and it's realistic.
You know,
so it
and
needs to be talked
realistically, the youth of today have buried so many of their friends
Yep.
that has got to play such a big impact on, well, you know, life really is so overwhelming for them. You're not supposed to be dealing with death. Maybe death of a grandparent, right? Normal occurrences. So for me, when I talk to other parents, you know, don't ever compare the loss of a child to the loss of your parent, because that's a normal occurrence in your lifetime.
No parent should ever have to bury their child
Never.
from this.
It's
or from anything.
unnatural.
After anything, yeah.
It's unnatural.
I don't want to have to talk to one of my friends' moms and be like, I knew this was happening. I didn't do anything.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
I don't need any of that.
Exactly.
Because you know what? Then that puts guilt on me, and that puts me in a bad position that maybe I can start going into that path because I'm overwhelmed and I'm stressed out, and oh,
Correct.
this is how they dealt with it. I won't
Perfectly
turn out
put.
like them.
Perfectly.
I don't want to be that person that has to go up to my best friend's mom and be like, I knew this was happening, and I didn't do anything to stop it.
Perfectly said. And, you know, I think the most important thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, since if you say something and your friend is really mad at you, that's okay. They're
Yeah.
either going to get over it or they're
Absolutely.
not.
I'd rather my
But-
friend stop talking to me
Then
than me
die.
never be able to talk to them
Yeah.
again.
Correct. Correct.
I don't need, my friends are my best friends, right? I care for them. I want them to be happy. I want them to do these things. But if they're doing something that generally puts them in harm's way, I don't
Not gonna
I don't care
hesitate
if they
yep.
get mad at me for telling them, stop, that's not good, you're gonna get hurt, that's wrong, you're being stupid.
So many young people do feel that way. They don't want to be ostracized as, you know, or put in a bad position.
And that goes right
for
back to
that.
the self-pressure and
Correct.
stigma of,
Right.
I don't need, I'm not gonna say anything because I don't want to be pointed out. That you can even tie that all the way back to bullying in elementary school.
Absolutely.
I don't want to stand up for them because maybe I'll start being bullied after.
Correct.
It starts there.
I
That's
also-
where this mindset comes from.
I also think it's not understanding quite what's happening. So I have a very close family member. That's why I'm connected to this. Is I have a close member who's in long-term recovery, and when this person was in the throes of their addiction, their friends didn't step up and contact the person's caregivers. One person did. But I think a lot of people that were around this person didn't quite understand what was going on and were kind of like, that guy's a jerk.
Right.
Rather than, holy moly, there's a really big issue here. He's lost control. How can we insulate him? Like,
Right.
you know,
How can we-
bring him, you know, come together and work on what's, you know,
Because we
getting
all
him
know,
help.
you know, when the family gets stronger, the person struggling with the disease is going to be really more or less cornered to say, all right, you know, they're going to come to terms that they need help much faster than if they are manipulating the dynamics within the home.
Another thing, like you said, like long-term recovery, I think no recovery is short-term.
Yeah.
It's gonna
A lot of
follow you
people
around.
Yep.
Right.
A lot of people like to say, well, I'm not an addict anymore. I was an addict, but you're always an addict. You're always gonna, something can come up so quickly. And I think it's another reason that it's important for people to reach out to caregivers, because, I mean, someone, you know, who's very close to me has struggled in the past, and for the longest time their parents had no idea. And then when they were going through a hard time, they want to turn back to it, but now their parents or their caregivers or whoever knows that they're having a hard time, and they might go back to that because someone, you know, reached out and let them know, and even let them know that they were having a hard time to begin with. Because I think kids are very hesitant to tell their families what's going on. They tell the sibling first, you know.
The sibling.
Yeah. and then it's if you rat on me, you're a jerk.
Right.
So
Right.
I think
You know, I can speak for, my son. Once I knew, then he had a partner. There's nothing that, a caregiver or a parent is never going to stop loving
yeah,
you.
and you never want them to go through it alone.
They may not like your behavior, but we're going to address that. So one doesn't equate to the other. But, part of the disease is that when you are doing all the things that you're doing when you're struggling with substance use disorder, which could be stealing or being, outrageously mean and saying hurtful things, that when you're coming into or not wanting to use anymore, you're embarrassed and ashamed because the disease is like, see, you are no good.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's go use again,
Right.
because they want to bring you back to that dark place. So it's
That's-
just all of those things that
we
go along
hear-
with it.
We hear so much too, and just because like you said, you're always wanting to go back once you get to that bad place, and you hear a lot people are chasing that first high. I've heard a lot of stories recently because Narcan is becoming so big and so important, and it is so important for people to have the training, people to have it on them. I believe the age is being switched soon.
they're working on it to
Yes,
lower
they're
to
working
16.
on it
Yeah.
to, you can get the training now. Right now you can get the training at 16, you can't hold it until you're 18. Right now they're trying to make sure make
Yeah,
the age
to
16 to
yeah.
hold. But I've heard crazy stories about, we had Phoenix House come to the high school during Rap Week last week, and one of the most empowering things that one of the men in recovery said was that he had overdosed 4 times within a week. He had received Narcan, gone into the hospital, gone through withdrawals, and he said, you think someone would be grateful, but I wasn't, because they took me out of that high.
Yeah.
And that is such a scary and sad place to be in, but that is what it is. That is the truth of it, and that is the mindset. And I think people need to really try their best to understand it, and that's where the education comes in again.
Well, people need to understand that the person that was just brought back to life is also in acute withdrawal, and every cell inside their body is physically dependent on that drug, including their mindset.
Right.
But the physical dependency on something as strong
Exactly.
as heroin or opiates, your body demands the drug.
It's no longer
Right.
need for the high, it's need for function.
It's
Yep.
need for function.
Yeah.
It's need for that your every cell in your body hurts. So but how sad is it that he OD'd 4 times and wasn't being held someplace?
Exactly.
So we are
So
working on changing that law. Yeah.
I speak a lot about, for my father, my grandmother, his
His
mother,
mom.
would always tell me it was the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing to get an addict to admit they have a problem.
Yes.
After that, it's the hardest thing to get them to want help or agree to help.
Correct.
After that, it's the hardest thing to get them there. And then you get to these places and you're rejected because of insurance. My dad was rejected because his condition wasn't severe enough for their facility.
It wasn't life-threatening. It wasn't. He couldn't
He had
die
OD'd
from
the night
withdrawal.
before.
Correct.
So they told him that it wasn't severe enough for their facility. They, it's just like, and then how are they supposed to want to go there again after
Correct. After
basically being rejected?
Yeah.
So
We have changed quite a few laws in 2014, 2016. We'll be back this year. So people who seek treatment can get 14 days without being questioned by the insurance company. So, there are changes happening.
Right.
We still need to do more this year. My big advocacy will be for access for treatment on demand. So if I'm ready to go, I'm going to go, and I'm going to be able to get treatment immediately. Because unfortunately, my son always had to fail at something before
Yep.
you need to fail at outpatient again before we give you inpatient. Well, a fatal progressive disease left untreated becomes fatal.
Right.
So we need to stop that. Absolutely. The insurance companies also, it's mitigating risk, unfortunately.
Right.
So the longer we keep them out of treatment, they won't be our insured, they'll be dead, or they'll be in jail. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's the only disease that this happens with. No one would ever say to
A cancer
any
patient,
of us,
you can't get chemo.
as women, oh, you have breast cancer. Well, we're going to put you in talk therapy and see.
Yep.
We know that's not going to work, but we're willing to take that chance. So we'll talk to you in 6. Wouldn't fly. So why does it fly with this disease?
It's because people still don't really recognize it as a disease.
Correct.
If you ask
That's-
me.
yes.
There's
But
something
it is
big.
recognized, and
by-
it's covered under the federal
Right.
parity law.
Right.
That it needs to
But
be recognized.
I was actually having a
as
talk
disease.
with one of my teachers. Like, again, no one wakes up one day and is like, I'm gonna be a heroin addict. Like, there's a switch in your head that flips when the first
Yes.
time you use something, and it's not gonna flip for everyone. And some
Correct.
people it will. There's a gene that some people just have that's gonna give them. They have
Is it
more of an addictive like personality.
Or it's genetic.
Right.
Yep.
And I think people don't recognize that. People don't recognize that.
They recognize it as a moral failing
Right.
or as a choice.
Yeah.
The first time
I know
is-
my
The
21-year-old
first
son
time's a choice,
didn't
and
choose to
everything
kill
after
himself.
that
Yeah.
is
is
The first time
dependency.
is a choice or a mistake.
and,
Yes.
and the rest of it is dependency.
Yeah.
is functioning, is just needing it. It's not even a desire anymore. It's the needing it
Yeah.
to function in every day.
And now we're going to see, we haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg, respectfully from my humble point of view, because we have all these babies that are born dependent
So
on opiates. We have a generation of orphans who are being raised by their grandparents or other people because their parents are either dead or they're, on the run, still out using. So we haven't even seen all the, outside damage from this
and that's
disease.
another thing. Like I think people like they recognize that like if I start using, like she's going to be affected. Like my family will be affected. They'll understand. But like the babies, they didn't ask for that.
No, they didn't ask
No,
for that.
they were born into this, and they're going through the withdrawal symptoms, and that's not their fault.
That's not their fault.
People
and we
don't
don't
recognize.
even know what the long-term effects.
Right.
to-
People don't. Addicts, like some, I guess some of them understand, some of them don't. Again, every case is different. But me using is going to affect other people, whether I realize it or not.
But they don't. So I speak a lot at treatment facilities, and people, unless once they get in, a little bit clean time, they can recognize the damage that they have done to their families. And they do need to make amends, and that, trust needs to be rebuilt. But it's talk is cheap, it's actions, it's thoughts, it's words, they need to make amends to their families. But the first part of that is recognizing that they did that to their families.
I think a lot of misunderstanding also is around the disease of addiction being progressive.
Yes.
And so I think that's what really draws us back to the Youth Coalition is
It's wildfire in adolescent.
right.
Wildfire in an adolescent brain.
And we don't know who's susceptible to the disease. So, I think one thing that we want to work on, like we said before, is offering opportunities for adolescents to engage in really fun activities that are drug-free, but also like in the spring we're planning a mental health day, and one
That's
of the
awesome.
one of the
I'm
components
so excited.
Yeah.
That's gonna be my favorite.
one of the components is a mini wellness retreat. So we're going to teach some healthy coping mechanisms like meditation, yoga, relaxation. We'll do a little bit of, I believe we're going to be doing drumming or something.
Some
so,
mindfulness stuff.
so that's a part.
Mindfulness. It's all about mindfulness. It's all about
Mindfulness
recognizing
techniques are-
I need some time just for me. I need to disconnect from my phone, from social media, from everything.
I know that.
And I need to retreat for me.
I know that for me, the thing that works the most is mindfulness techniques. Like, It's the simplest thing. Like I've
Peeling
had
an
counselors
orange.
told. Yes, did I tell you that?
Yeah.
The peeling the orange thing. Have you ever heard that?
No.
You can do it with anything you're eating or drinking, really, but peeling an orange helps because it's like the smell is.
Yeah. Is
Hearing
invigorating.
it as it comes on.
Yeah, you're listening to it, you're feeling it. What does it taste like? What does it smell like? Just
Awesome.
Mindfulness.
We will have you guys back on because I want to hear about more, and maybe we can give some really great ideas to other school districts as to what we can do. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. We look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great rest of the week.